Sometimes when you're skimming through the headlines and you're looking at stories, you see sometimes a headline that you take a step back and go, wow. And this one in particular made me shake my head because of just how ignorant it is to the entire situation. And just to show you the lack of understanding from traditional media sources. So we know that in Canada here, the younger generation, the millennials, the Gen Zs, or Gen Zs, whatever you prefer, people my age and younger are struggling. They're struggling to get anywhere, to survive in this nation that promised them so many empty promises and now is more than ever clear that their future is being wiped off the map. And of course, CTV News, even though they have the information, they have the ability to understand why the younger generation has lost cause and compassion with this nation, they still have to ask the ultimate question. How did Canada's young people become its unhappiest generation? Really? Really? You think with all the power and essence and the energy and the amount the amount of skills, like the amount that CTV and Bell Media has at their disposal, could already just answer that question? The fact that they had to write a report about this. How did Canada's young people became so unhappy? This is apparently journalism, according to CTV News. This sounds like every single family discussion at dinner. Why are younger people not smiling enough? Why are younger people? You just got to pick yourself off by the bootstraps and work even harder. That's what it takes. You just gotta, believe in the system. Believe. And then you get, Grandpapa talking about how back in the 50s and 60s, I was able to buy a home off for a quarter when I was 18 years old, blah, blah, blah. Not realizing the fact that a lot of the younger generation not only has to pay off the debts of previous generations, but we're also paying off the mass amounts of money we're exporting to foreign wars. That's causing us more debt. That inflation is continuing to skyrocket. The fact that housing has become more and more unaffordable. The fact that the younger generation is the most unemployed generation in this country's history. Unemployment rates for younger people are skyrocketing. And younger people are more likely to get replaced by either a temporary foreign worker for scab wages or replaced entirely by AI. That's fact. I'm sure CTV News didn't think this through before publishing this. It's so absurd to even have this headline here. But as it says here, it says, as a teen growing up in Toronto, Vivek Sharma imagined that what his life would look like at 25 years old. He and his high school friends would be starting families. They'd be on six-figure salaries and living comfortably. Now 27, he is living with his parents in Kitchener, Ontario, driven out of Toronto by high rent and other costs. I think back then, in that generation, it was definitely a lot easier, Sharma said, of the path to adulthood for his parents who moved in Canada from India about 30 years ago. You get it, your job, you would save up, you would get a house, could invest in a business. Now, as he saves for a down payment of his first home, Sharma understands those things come later for many in his generation, and everything costs more, he said, from housing to food. Sharma is among a generation of Canadians whose idea of a dream life could be in a state of flux, researchers say, forcing them to reconsider what it means and what it takes to be happy. From families to finances, benchmarks are happening later for Canada's young, and their happiness levels have been plummeting. The World Happiness Report says Canadians under 30 were the happiest age group in the country as recently as 2011. Now they're the unhappiest. The 2024 edition of the decades-long study of global happiness published by the Wellbeing Research Center at the University of Oxford asked participants to picture their life as a ladder, with the best possible life at 10 and the worst at 0. While many countries among the 134 covered by the research have also seen their happiness levels fall among those under 30 since 2006, the slide of young Canadians down the ladder is exceptional. Only 4 countries have seen a worse decline: Jordan, Venezuela, Lebanon, and Afghanistan. So think about that. One of the developed nations in North America, one of the richest nations in the Western Hemisphere, is neck and neck with Middle Eastern countries. Middle Eastern countries that got destroyed by people like us, by the military-industrial complex. We're worse off than we were over a decade ago. Yet overall age groups, Canada ranked the 15th happiest country in the 2025 report, which did not contain the same level of detail about young people as last year's report. Canada ranked 18th. Anthony McCanney, the lead author of the separate 2024 Canadian Happiness Report published by the University of Toronto's Population and Wellbeing Lab, said young Canadians are reconfiguring expectations. We had a vision about what becoming an adult meant in terms of your job, comes your financial security, and having a home, he said. Exactly that it looks like to reach that later stage of life is changing. Young people across Canada interviewed by the Canadian press described the challenge of building lives they once imagined, boggled down by an unaffordable housing market, struggles to save for the future, online gloom, and a growing youth mental health crisis. Fitness instructor Taylor Arndt of Winnipeg, 27, said she's processing the idea she might never get married or have children as she grapples with day-to-day challenges. Ontario graduate Thyvian, how do you say that? Oh my God. Thyvian Verna Kumarana. Good God. I'm not going to repeat that. Applied for more than 400 jobs before finding work and considers living with his parents a privilege. Communication CEO Catherine LeBlanc spoke of the demands of the 24-hour news cycle and summoned BC mental health program told of limited support. Many of those spoke of finding ways to be happy in the moment, even if their lives haven't turned out the way they pictured. I'm happy, yeah, said Sharma. Family, friends, vacations, and balancing work expectations bring him joy. I try to stay positive. So, it's so fascinating about this particular article is that while they do list the certain attributes that may play a factor in this, CTV News is still trying to play dumb to this. They're still trying to play dumb about why are people so unhappy? I mean, yeah, cost of living is up. Yes, people can't afford food. Yes, people are trying to save up to put a down payment on a house and apartment they can't afford. They're still living with their parents. They're probably not going to get married or have children because supporting themselves is already a struggle. Why would they want to start a family if they can't survive themselves? Why are people so unhappy? Like, it's so absurd to watch traditional media, even when they go into details about the possibilities of why people are so unhappy. They're still kind of clueless to it. Because they know a lot of this comes from the mismanagement of the Carney clan. They know that this is part of the government. This is part of the federal response to all the crisis that they've created. The fact that Mark Carney, the central banker, was never going to resolve these crises that was created by the same liberal establishment. But this goes in the direction of, 2030, 30, great reset, own nothing and be happy. This does go in that direction. And you get the news media talking about, why are kids so unhappy? You just gotta change things around. You gotta be happy that, it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse. The Canadian government could be passing along MAID pamphlets to you. And I know that sounds like a sick joke, but that's actually true. That's actually true. They did that to high schoolers in Manitoba. They gave out MAID pamphlets, assisted self-deletion pamphlets to high schoolers, emotionally stunted youth that could easily talk to a counselor or get some sessions with a therapist, whatever the case may be. They gave them MAID pamphlets. It's sick. It truly is sick. So there's also this part here where it says, before 2014, well-being in Canada could be broadly described as a U-shaped trajectory. Satisfaction was high among youth, declined to a low point in midlife, then rose again for people who got older. John Halliwell, an emeritus professor of economics at the University of British Columbia and a founder-editor of the World Happiness Report, said that U-shape is no more. The happiness of the young has dropped significantly far below that of the middle age that used to be the least happy. It's now the young and the middle age and then the uprising at the end is still there. Halliwell said social and economic conditions are not seen by today's youth as promising, unlike previous generations. The chances of getting a job and the chances of getting a job with a future, that's one dimension. And the other is the price of housing, he said. Where you live is very important, a part of how you feel about your life. Feelings of economics and residential security clearly are important to happiness, so uncertainty about either of those aspects of life is going to play in a negative way. In 2023, the Bank of Canada's Housing and Affordability Index hit its worst level in 41 years. 41 years. But CTV News still has the balls to write an article where the headline asks why people are so upset. Again, it shows the utter ignorance that comes from traditional media. All the resources, all the value that they have at Bell Media and all these traditional outlets. Even when they describe why some people would be upset, they still want to act clueless. They still want to act clueless. Because otherwise, they might actually have to do journalism. They might have to actually go to the government and say, hey, you're not doing anything for affordability. The younger generation is pissed off at you, rightfully so, and they have no trust for this country. They have no respect. They have no tolerance for this country that's being self-destructed by a bunch of megalomaniacs in Parliament. You will never see CTV News writing an article about that. Never. That's why they're going to play dumb. That's why they're going to play this ridiculous charade of saying, well, we don't know why they're upset, but, cost of living is up and people can't afford a home. So, I guess they got to, figure things out. Maybe they got to lower their expectations. That's what the Bank of Canada would usually say. Canadians got to accept a lower standard of living. We have to accept a lower standard of living, not them, not the employees of the Bank of Canada, not the politicians, not the people that we give money away to, but you as a Canadian, as a person striving to maintain survival in this country, you have to lower your expectations. Well, it has eased. It remains at levels akin to the early 1990s where interest rates were more than 9%. The situation has been particularly acute for Canadians young. Nonprofit Generation Squeeze says that in 1986, it took 5 years for a typical 25 to 34-year-old to save for a 20% down payment on a representative home in Canada. By 2021, it took 17 years. And in the greater Vancouver and Toronto areas, it was 27. Other life benches have been shifting too. Statistics Canada says the average age of marriage has steadily increased from 25 in 1968 to 35 in 2019. Data since been skewed by the COVID-19 pandemic, which Stat Canada says saw mainly delayed marriage plans. Over the same period, the agency says the average age of first-time mothers rose from 22 to 29%, while the average age, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, they're trying to, butter up the story to say, well, people are getting married, they're having more kids. That's something. But, again, it leaves out the vital issue of all this. The vital issue is the fact that things are becoming more and more unaffordable for the average person, that this country is self-imploding on itself. That if you don't have a strong middle class to maintain and to keep the country afloat, then the country cannot survive. It's as simple as that, folks. It's as simple as that. And when you get a central banker who assumes the position of prime minister to solve the problems of the same party that they created, how do you think it was going to work out? How do you think it was going to work out? Do you think that Mark Carney actually envisioned in saving the economy and doing good for the Canadian working class, the guy who hasn't even been in this country for the last 10 years, who went to the became the governor of the Bank of England and almost corrupted their country to smithereens, completely eroded them, and now he's doing the same thing here. Because that's what the oligarch masters, the world dominant leaders, the New World Order, that's what they want. They want countries to self-implode themselves, crush themselves to smithereens, and then rebuild to this deep state, technological feudalist society that they envisioned. This is all part of this great reset. And people my age and younger are more likely to be those victims. So, here, this is from Wealth Moose. It says, Nanos found that groceries aren't just a concern. They are the concern. At 43%, food costs dominate the national anxiety map. Debt and housing are a distant second at 17%. And here's the kicker. Canadians under 35 are twice as likely to fear of losing their jobs in 2026. Again, as I stated, the younger generation is statistically more likely to be replaced by temporary foreign workers for scab wages or AI automation. That's a fact. So no wonder why the younger generation is ticked off. No wonder why. And no wonder why they would not watch CTV News, because CTV News is acting dumb intentionally. They're acting dumb intentionally. As if they don't know why people are upset. As if they don't know the circumstances of what younger people are dealing with. They know that unemployment is skyrocketing. They know the cost of living is making things more and more unaffordable. And if they knew that, they would actually do something about it. That's why they're playing dumb. So here is CTV News Channel talking about the rise of groceries. And this is another concern. This is why, again, why more and more people are getting upset, because survival, the basic needs of survival, like nourishment, like water, like heat, like hydro, is becoming more and more unaffordable for so many people. It's so insane. It's so insane. And I was just thinking this, that for the amount you pay to stock up on groceries for a week, if you're a family of 3 or family of 4, it's almost cheaper to buy a new television, a luxury item, than it is to provide food for your family. You see how backwards? You see the pyramid scheme flipped upside down? That a luxury item, like a flat screen TV, like a new television, it's almost cheaper than the average family's trip to, say, Costco or to Walmart or to any other grocery store just to feed and nourish them. So, hear what they say.
Well, there's a new poll out today from Nanos Research that suggests the biggest financial concern for Canadians heading into the new year is the cost of food. Joining me now is Nick Nanos. He's the founder and chief data scientist at Nanos Research. Good morning, Nick. Great to see you as always. So let's talk about the results of this survey. Clearly, people really concerned about their grocery bills. Is this a higher stress point than housing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the highest stress point when we look at the national numbers. In the CTV News Nanos survey, when we ask Canadians about their main financial concern going into 2026, groceries was at the very top of the list, ahead of everything else by a country mile at around 43%. Then there was a tie for second place, Marcia, between personal debt and housing costs at around 17%.
I don't want to pause it there because I want people to take those numbers in. So 42.5% going into the new year are concerned about grocery prices. 17.4% personal debt, 16.9% on housing costs, 8.2% on job security. Now, I'm not sure exactly who they surveyed, but I was sure you probably the younger generation there'd be a lot more more in the statistics. Because yeah, the basic necessities of survival. Think about that. Food. And of course, you hear it all the time about how, well, grocery prices are going up and you just got to deal with it. We just did the video about how Dollarama is, making a boom because of the cost of living crisis. And as I pointed out, yeah, Dollarama may be doing well in the cost of living, but what does that tell you? What does that tell you overall? That people have to go to dollar stores just to feed themselves. That basic groceries, that for years we've had farmers, we've had food manufacturers, they're all going away and driving up the cost of living because the government, because the overlords that truly take control of this country, they're doing this. They're the ones that are doing this. And they keep telling you, well, you just got to deal with it because, climate change. That's why beef prices are going up, because of climate change. It's nature's fault. It's not our fault. It's not the government's fault. It's just nature. So you just got to deal with it. You got to suck it up and deal with it. Really, it's nothing to do with the fact that you demonize farmers, the oldest profession in human history. It's not because of that. It's not because of you mass spending on foreign regime change wars that have nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with that. It's nothing to do with the fact that we're putting out a 400-page budget of a $78 billion deficit. It's nothing to do with that. No, they just want to tell Canadians, suck it up and deal with it.
Followed by job security. And here's a little tidbit. 8% of Canadians say, hey, I'm not worried about anything. I have no financial woes. So congratulations if you are in that group, but it is a small number of Canadians who have no worries going into 2026.
8%. Huh, okay. Let's break it down by region.
I really like to know who those people are. I really like to know. I don't have any worries. I don't have any worries. I don't have any intentions. Who are those people? Are those the people that work inside the government? Are those the condo owners in Toronto that came out to vote for Mark Carney because, hey, Mark Carney, went after our mean guy Donald Trump? Mark Carney's running this country like it's his kingdom. Kind of ironic, right? Kind of ironic.
Because some areas of the country are feeling it more than others.
Absolutely. If we look at regions like the prairies in Atlantic Canada, they're more likely to report that they're concerned about groceries. Ontario, interestingly, is comparatively more likely to talk about housing and cite that compared to other parts of the country, although groceries is still the top worry on that front. So groceries over-indexing in Atlantic Canada and the prairies, and in Ontario a little lower, but Ontarians more focused on housing compared to Canadians and other parts of the country as things that they're worried about.
And Nick,
But we should be worried about, because Mark Carney stood in front of that construction site like a play. Should be okay. We should be okay with that, right? Because he said he's going to build more housing. Oh, that was a lie. That was a lie that we pointed out beforehand. And we knew that was a whole theatrical performance, that he stood in front of a fake construction site. Literally a fake construction site. That they brought in parts of a setup and made it look like that, oh, Mark Carney's getting his hands dirty. It was all fake. It was all fake. Because this administration, this parliamentarian, the people that are running this, are purposely, intentionally causing these crises to get worse. They're causing this. They want to self-destruct the nation for their masters. Their masters. Because they want to turn Canada, this once, peaceable nation, into a vessel for the WEF. Where you're going to eat bugs, you're going to own nothing and like it. You're going to shut the hell up. And eventually, hey, once you get replaced by AI technology, you're worthless to us. You're worthless to us. We don't need your labor. You're just a useless eater. That's not my words. That's coming from the WEF themselves. And eventually they're going to start looking at people and saying, you really need to be here. And that is dark. That is sinister. And I'm not making this as a joke. I'm not making this as hyperbole. I'm just stating what they've already said about this out in the open. Go look at the record. Go look at, past instances where they've talked about this transformation that they want to do to all these different countries, and compare that to what's happening right now. So, this guy, Rod Taylor, who I'm not sure exactly, he's the CHP national leader. He quoted that article that we just saw there with CTV. Says Canada's young people went from being the happiest generation in 2011 to the unhappiest today. Gen Z and millennials, or do you say Gen Z, are drowning in unaffordable housing, crushed dreams, job instability, and missed milestones, while boomers are experiencing peak happiness. Previous generations had the latter. Our youth are redefining happiness amid barriers that previous generations never faced. So, he understands. I understand. Majority of people know what's going on. But yeah, you get CTV News having to write an absurd article about why is younger people so upset all the time? Why can't they just buck up and smile more? Maybe put on a nice suit, if they can afford one. It's so absurd. It's so absurd. And of course, they're going to manufacture the narrative to think that, there's no concern about this. They're already written articles about how, despite all this, Mark Carney has added so many jobs. So we should be happy about that. Oh, Doug Ford is taking an extended vacation because he worked hard to save Ontario. He worked hard to not sell off the liquor that the province of Ontario already bought from America. Yeah, the absurdity of our politicians, the entire state of our political structure is an utter joke. So, Table Salt says major breaking. Bleak Canadian job numbers. There are now 732,000 unemployed Canadians with high school or less education, competing for only 296,000 jobs, and 493,000 university-educated people competing only for 80,000 jobs. That's from Stats Canada. And again, it's just so amazing that they have all this information, that we know about this. We know how the job market is skewed. And they still excuse the fact that we need to bring in more people into the country to replace Canadian workers. And like I said, the younger generation is statistically more likely to be replaced by a temporary foreign worker or AI automation. And you wonder why that generation is like, you wonder why. I talk about it all the time. I'm not a, political scientist. I'm not an economist. I'm just a person with eyes and ears and a brain. I just function inside this nightmare country and understand what other people are dealing with. And we actually come together on those circumstances. They like to tell you that, everything's so divided, but really it's not. It's really not, because this affects everybody. This affects everybody, no matter who you are in this world. So here's Stats Canada, going quarter by quarter. So 2024, high school diploma or less compared to 2025. You could see the unemployed people versus job vacancies. Look at it. It's decreasing. It's decreasing. And even with the phony articles that tell you that Mark Carney's creating jobs, that Doug Ford's creating jobs, they're not sustainable. They're part-time positions. They just announced in Toronto that they're going to bring Waymo. They're going to bring autonomous self-driving vehicles to carpool people in Toronto, which now that's going to affect people that work in Uber and taxis. Think about that. People that have to be forced into the gig economy are being replaced. How do you think that's going to work out? And that's why I'm on the side when Tucker Carlson told Ben Shapiro, when asked about, do you believe that, self-driving trucks should be the future of transportation? Tucker Carlson said, no, I don't want self-driving trucks, because that's going to replace a huge number of people's employment. Because the number one employer for people that don't have a college education, particularly males, is truck driving. Do you just want to replace them? And then do what? How are they going to get income? How are they going to survive? Trades and certificate diploma, other non-university certificates and university certificates below a bachelor's degree or higher. Look at that. And you wonder why people are so upset. God, it's such a mystery. I don't know. I don't understand. If only we just stepped outside and actually talked to people on an average day. Like, I swear, the ignorance coming from traditional media is astonishing. So here, this is interesting. So this is from a Satire Squad headquarters. Canada's youth are unhappy and struggling. Media focuses on social media instead of broken economy. A new report confirming that Canada's young people are among the unhappiest in the developed world has prompted a wave of coverage focused largely on social media use, screen time, and lifestyle pressures, carefully avoiding the much simpler explanation the economy no longer works for them. Yeah. And you notice how, like, all the concern is about, misinformation and how people are diving into conspiracies. That seems to be the only focus. That's why they're pushing for Bill C-9 so quickly. Oh, we got to deal with the hate that's going on. Well, you know why there's a rise in hatred? Is because the economy doesn't work for anybody. And when you have an economy that's collapsing, when you have a nation that's crumbling, the hatred starts to fuel up. If you look at human history, there's a thing called despotism. Go look that up. When the country is collapsing, when there is no longer economic stability for entire generations, that's when fury starts to rev up. That's when people start to get more angry. That is when the happy-go-lucky Canadians get really ticked off. And as the National Post article, I wish I had this in the Rolodex here, To remind people, the National Post stated that if there was a disclosed RCMP document that said if Canadians knew how broken the country is, there would be a revolt. So that's why they're keeping your attention away from the economy, taking your attention away from the horrific gloom of this of this parliament and of the government, and focusing on things like, oh, social media, TikTok. Oh my God, things that people are learning from X. Donald Trump tweeted this. They want to keep you distracted from the real sickening society, the real sickness that's happening to this country. Despite facing record housing costs, stagnant wages, historical debt levels, and zero realistic path to ownership or stability, young Canadians were told their unhappiness likely stems from phones, comparison culture, and not practicing enough self-care. Wow. Like the absurdity of this. Oh, it's your fault. It's your fault. Where's Chrystia Freeland to come back and say that you got to cancel a Disney Plus account? That's going to make affordability better. It's you wanting to stream things. Not the fact that we just took another $200 million off to Ukraine while they're under a corruption investigation. Nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with the fact that the CRA wasted $18 million on an AI chatbot that doesn't work. They thought a chatbot was going to replace the entire agency, and they wasted $18 million on a chatbot that doesn't even do the job. This generation is under a lot of pressure, he says, one analyst said. While gesturing vaguely from 11 years of economic policy that made basic adulthood unaffordable. The report notes that many young Canadians now expect to be poorer than their parents, a first in modern history, while also anticipating that their parents' financial safety nets are being eroded just in time to ensure no backup plans exist. Government-funded media outlets were quickly to pivot the conversation towards mindfulness, digital detoxes, and resilience training, reassuring viewers that systemic economic failure is actually a personal mindset issue. Sounds like the ultimate mind control psyop, doesn't it? It's your fault that you're poor. You go back how many years they've been trying to use this. It's never the government's fault. It's never the people in control and have more power, more authority, more financial whim against you. It's never their fault, but it's you. Well, maybe you got to cut back less. Maybe you got to, sacrifice more. That's what they keep telling Canadians. You got to sacrifice more. That's mind control for you. Well, officials emphasize that while young Canadians may feel hopelessness, the economy is strong on paper, adding that the paper is still very affordable. At press time, young Canadians were encouraged to log off, take a deep breath, and accept that their future was sacrificed for reasons no one in power seemed interested in explaining. Yeah. It is a dark future for young people in this country. It is dark. It is deeply, deeply concerning. And all I could say, going back to that National Post article where they had a document, they had an internal document passed around by the RCMP that stated if Canadians knew how screwed this country is, there would be revolts. There would be tirades against the government. There would be another freedom convoy, which, frankly, there should be. Frankly, there should be demonstrations because of the direction of where things are going. And, I'm not saying that we need to go full out. I'm not, I condone violence. I'm not saying go out and start, being that chaotic. But we need to come together on this because it's affecting an entire generation. Again, it's not specific people. They like to divide. They like to divide so they can conquer. But this is affecting everybody. It's affecting, the younger generation. It's affecting their parents. It's affecting even seniors. Because they're also now saying that the seniors, they have to give up some of their retirement money. They have to sacrifice more. That they're now, all the years that they have worked and saved up and comfortably retired, that now they have to sacrifice a bit more. And who are we sacrificing for? It's not for other Canadians. It's not for the benefit of this country. It's for the benefit of the mobsters, of the economic hitmen that take control of this nation. And for all the people that stood out and did the whole elbows up thinking that Donald Trump was going to take over Canada and that we're losing our sovereignty over a repugnant game show host, as bad as Donald Trump is, our sovereignty was already taken away. Our sovereignty was already taken away. And this is the result of it. They want nothing to do with you. They have no consideration for you. They have no respect or tolerance for you. They want to self-destruct this country and rise up from the ashes into a technological feudalist society. And once the AIs take over and take over all the industries, that's when it really hits the fan. And they start asking questions of, what use are you? That's when it gets really dark. And again, these are not jokes. These are not just dark humor jokes. This is stuff you hear from the WEF constantly. The useless eaters. The people that are no longer feasible for the country because, hey, if robots are taking over and we don't have to pay them or do anything supportive for the working class, it's absolutely sick.